Good evening again, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of DMs with PM. It is your Tuesday evening entertainment and, of course, information segment because I see a lot of you are thoroughly entertained in the comment section. So we are so happy to have you back for another edition. And I know this is the edition you've been waiting for as we have the Prime Minister back in the seat. And I think I speak for everyone when we say we are happy to have him back. The ministers did a good job, but I know you guys viewing and listening would love to hear from him this evening, and that's what we're about to do. But before we introduce the Prime Minister, I want to welcome all our listeners on radio, Power FM, Vibes FM Karakou, Star FM, Fusion FM, GBN, and WeFM. And not forgetting you, the viewers on Facebook and YouTube. So do us a favor quickly and just share the live because it will be a very, very interesting evening. So without any further ado, welcome back, Prime Minister. It's a pleasure to have you in the chair again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I missed Grenada. I hope everyone missed me as well.
I think you are thoroughly missed based on, the comments and the questions. Is the PM back? Is the PM back every week? So we are happy to have you back. So in the meantime, guys, like I said, share the live. Remember, we are live on YouTube and Facebook, and of course also on radio. And again, welcome to this week's edition of DMs with PM. So we're not going to stick because this is the fastest hour on radio and of course online. So we have to get into it right away. So without any further ado, again, it's been how many weeks, days? 2 weeks? Okay, 2 weeks. So we are happy to have you back, like I said. And of course, you're on your recent trip to Ghana. We got a lot of insights, via social media and all of that. But speak to us about your recent trip, and maybe you can highlight some things that stood out the most for you.
Sure. First of all, it was an official state visit to Ghana. I had the opportunity to meet the relatively newly elected president. He was elected last year, but he has been the previous president of Ghana. There was an 8-year term when he was out of office, and he regained the presidency this year. He's a historic figure in Ghanaian politics because he was the first vice president to become president. The president had died in office. He then took over, he ran, he won, subsequently lost again, and then ran again. So he's a well-known elder statesman in Africa and in Ghana. As you're aware, we have pursued a deliberate strategy of forging closer ties with African countries, and Grenada specifically, Ghana being one of them. So it was a high-level visit myself. The foreign minister was also in attendance together with other resident ambassadors. The foreign minister of Ghana and the foreign minister of Grenada had an extensive meeting that covered a wide range of areas in terms of looking at bilateral cooperation. The immediate result of this is that we've signed a memorandum of understanding with the government of Ghana that will see 30 Ghanaian nurses coming to Grenada. I can already say that the Ghanaians are already following up to make sure that this happens in quick time. Mm-hmm. As you're aware, the healthcare sector is one of those areas where we do have some human manpower challenges, and we want to ensure that we do everything we can to put Grenada in a place where we begin to address some of those issues now, while working on the long-term project, Polaris. In addition, we had also visited Ghana previously, and we would have then signed a visa waiver agreement with the Ghanaian government. So we also followed up to make sure this is operationalized. So what this sees is Grenadians, regardless of the class of passport you hold, diplomatic, ordinary, official, will be able to travel to Ghana without having to get a visa to enter Ghana. Similarly, we have waived the visa requirement for Ghanaians so that they can visit Grenada without having to obtain a visa. And certainly when we are trying to facilitate travel and we are trying to facilitate tourism, we're heavily dependent on tourism. We see that Africa has a rising middle class who, just like any other middle class anywhere in the world, wants to travel, wants to take vacations, and we want to position Grenada, and by extension the Caribbean, as a place where we can invite our brothers and sisters from Africa to come and vacation. So it involves also a closer cooperation in the culture and the creative sector. In November, we will see The Office of the Creative Affairs is collaborating with a Ghanaian firm that will come to Grenada to teach creatives skill sets, particularly when it comes to things like marketing, AI, digital marketing, etc. It's something that we are excited about, and we believe it will certainly attract a lot of our creatives. The firm is a very successful firm that has done significant work, not just in Africa, but internationally as well. We actually, significant conversations were held as well in terms of how we begin to get to the point where we have direct flights from Ghana to Grenada and the Caribbean. This is something we're working on. There's an event that is going to be held in Barbados in the not too distant future, where we expect a direct flight will come from Ghana to Barbados. When we held the Afrexim Bank event here, there was also a direct flight from Nigeria by Ethiopian Airlines to Grenada. Ethiopian Airlines is the most significant airline and successful international airline in Africa. When I visited Ethiopia, we met with the chief executive officer. We've held discussions as to how we can facilitate, even if it's once a quarter, once a month, a direct flight from Western Africa to Grenada. It's something we are going to task the Ministry of Tourism to follow up on, together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because we really do believe there's a significant opportunity for doing so. So it's a wide range of conversations. Of course, we discussed the shifting geopolitical issues that everyone has to grapple with. We discussed the need to ensure that we get support from our brothers and sisters in Africa for maintaining the Caribbean as a zone of peace. And coincidentally, the party that is in power in Ghana is called the National Democratic Congress. And the party that is in office in Grenada is also called the National Democratic Congress. And coincidentally, we were formed before their party was formed. So as they jokingly said in Ghana, they may owe some royalties for the name.
And I know you're really, really passionate about forging ties with, Africa, and passionate enough to trace your ancestry. Tell us a little bit about that for those who may not have picked up on that bit of information.
Yes, well, as you are aware, the majority of our population are descendants of Africans. And so when we held the Afrexim Bank Trade and Investment Forum in July, I had traced my maternal ancestry using ancestry.com, and it revealed that my maternal ancestry comes from the Akan people in Ghana. So it's probably likely that a significant percentage of us Grenadians can also trace our ancestry to Ghana as well.
I think something we need to check. We definitely need to check up on. Well, anything else on that line, or are we good?
No, I mean, the trip was not only to Ghana, it was also to Nigeria. We visited several states within Nigeria. In fact, the bulk of the time was spent in Nigeria. The states we visited, Abuja, Lagos, Taraba State, and the Delta State. We are pursuing, even at the state level, a significant bilateral cooperation with the states, because there is enormous opportunity, particularly in agriculture in Africa. And one of the challenges we face here in Grenada is scale. So oftentimes to produce food cheaply, you need to have scale, and you need to have the right technology as well. So we're also looking at how we can cooperate to begin to see what opportunities there are for us to actually have food produced in Africa that we can then import to Grenada. To be successful at that, it will also require us to look at the logistics, because the food obviously has to be shipped. And so also we met with significant members of the private sector to see whether there are opportunities for us to introduce them to private sector personnel in the Caribbean and in Grenada who are interested in the shipping and logistics business, so that we can see how we can begin to address the challenges of food security. Africa still has significant challenges in food security, even though it's a vast continent with vast resources. So in Nigeria, for example, they're beginning to build one of the largest food hubs where they can actually store food for a much longer period. Those issues align with us, because one of the things we've done here is to approve at the cabinet level a national food security policy in very much the same way we have to address hurricane disaster preparedness and so on. Because the truth is, as an island, if you become heavily dependent on importing food and you don't know the quantity of food that's on island at any given time, as I think we experienced during COVID, if the containers don't come, you will quickly find that we will find ourselves in a position where we may not have enough food to feed the population after a month, after 2 months. We have to ensure that we are not in this sort of a vulnerable position. So one, we have to be able to store food on island for much longer periods. Two, we have to be able to produce a lot more of the food on island. And three, we need to diversify the sources from which we get our food. Because if we rely on only one source, and that source is not available, it basically means we run the risk of, I don't want to call it starvation, but we run the risk of significant challenges to our food supply. And we saw that. during COVID.
During COVID, yes.
So we have to make sure that we take a more systematic approach to our food security. And I want to commend the Minister for Agriculture, Mr. Lennox Andrews, and his team for working on this document. We're hoping then to be able to operationalize it. So part of dealing with how we can get partners who can grow food cheaper in Africa and how we can ship it from Africa to the Caribbean is part of that strategy, because we have to be able to diversify if you have trade embargoes or wars or disruptions to the shipping lines, to make sure that there are multiple sources from which we can source our food.
Fantastic. Well, I know there's a lot I'm sure there's a lot that happened, and but in the interest of time, we'll have to cut that trip short and move on to, home. I saw you walking the runway yesterday.
Yes.
How was that initiative? What are your thoughts on it?
It's a good initiative. I think it's an opportunity for people to see the runway in a way you never see it, because you will only see it if you're on a plane or if you're in the waving gallery looking on. And it's testimony to the amazing engineering feat that was accomplished 40 plus years ago to be able to build the runway. But it also gives you an opportunity to see what room is there for expansion, for improvement and enhancement of the airport in general. So I think it is something that we will have to task the airport team with to look at. But I think from what I saw, many people were happy. I saw people lying on the runway. I saw people jumping. I saw people. So it was certainly a feeling of elation, and I think also a feeling of pride for people, knowing the struggle that we went through to get this airport and what it has meant for the economy of Grenada, the development of the southern part of the island. So it was both a symbolic but also a substantively significant event. It's the second time it's been done. I would probably say they need to encourage more Grenadians to come. The only challenge might be, I think they're charging a little fee. I'm not so sure if we should charge though, but I guess that's a matter for discussion. I think it's generally though, people should get an opportunity once a year to see the runway, to see what it's like, and hopefully it gets bigger.
You completed the entire runway, or you?
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy. 3-point-something miles, small thing.
Listen.
And it's relative. It's all flat. It's not like going to Market Hill or St. John's Street or so. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, when you are heading north, as in if you take it from the approach of the plains, you do have a slight incline, so you can certainly tell it's up a little. I guess it's built that way so that it slows down the planes when it's landing. When you're heading back out south, it's a lot easier because it's a little, and the wind is with you to your back, so it pushes you down. But when you're going forward, the wind is coming against you. So I felt like a plane, when I was walking up. Landing and the wind is coming against you. Yes.
Well, just before we go to break, though, it's been 3 years since, October 19th holiday. Folks are asking the question, when will heroes be named?
So we have to, it's a good question, and thank you for that. We can't rush it because we have to put a legislative framework in place. It's not just naming the heroes. You have to pass legislation that clearly articulates what's the criteria, who would be the selection panel, and most importantly, what happens when the person is named as a hero. You may be naming persons who are deceased. Are we going to name persons who are alive? And those are some of the policy debates we have to have and settle on. And the reason for that is sometimes you may want to name someone who's alive, but they may yet achieve even greater things. And so you may have to decide whether you want to wait until they're deceased. And then someone will debate and say, why wait till this person is deceased to name them as a hero? So those are some of the stakeholder consultations that we have to engage in. And then what if you're naming someone who's alive a hero, what benefits they get? So for example, in Barbados, Sir Garfield Sobers, who's alive, is a national hero. But there are also heroes who died before they were even named heroes. So those are some of the things we have to speak through. But I think also, as we endeavor to do the National Heroes Park, and it may, timing-wise, you may want to coincide all of this to come together. I'm not saying it must be that way, but it's certainly something that we are factoring as to whether or not we can work on the park and the legislation and the criteria all simultaneously together, so that when we get to the point when the heroes are named, you have their statues or their busts or whatever we'll be putting up in honor of them, and the park is commissioned, and then you do one big grand finale. I'm sure there will be a lot of debate about who should and who shouldn't be a hero as well, and you have to give the public the chance to weigh in on this as well.
Fantastic.
But there is a committee. The same committee that is working on the Heritage Park is also the same committee that is tasked with leading the work that is required to get us to that point.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, I'm sure folks are relieved with that response because that has been one of the burning questions over the weekend, seeing that we celebrated National Heroes Day on Sunday and, of course, yesterday being observed. Folks, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, it's for your DMs.
Bay Leaf, another of Project 500's signature design. This 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathrooms, a beauty, spans a gross area of 1,073 square feet. Built with fully insulated reinforced walls and insulated roof, Bay Leaf is crafted for comfort, efficiency, and sustainable living. The design achieves 100% efficiency in its superstructure. Inside, you'll find low-flow plumbing fixtures, large windows providing maximum ventilation, and a 25% greater efficiency than current building code requirements. Spacious bedroom, an open floor plan living, kitchen, and dining area. It is true to its name, Bay Leaf brings comfort and peace the moment you walk in. At Project 500, we're more than just building homes. We're about building sustainable communities and delivering quality homes for all families.
And welcome back once again to all our viewers and listeners of DMs with PM. Now it's time to take in some of your DMs. Very first question, unknown. It says Barbados, Belize, Dominica, and SVG have now moved to free movement. Does Grenada have any plans to join this grouping? And what are the hindrances to doing so now? Do you believe that CARICOM is ready to transform into the highest level of regional integration?
So we do intend to join the grouping. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Legal Affairs and the Attorney General's office is working on whatever final hurdles we need to overcome to make sure we join the free movement. Certainly we are highly supportive of the need for CARICOM nationals to be able to move freely within the member states. We see the movement of people as critical towards the integration movement. I don't know what he means by the highest level of integration, if it's political integration. If it's political integration, I think the answer is obviously no. It has never really been something since the collapse of the Federation that CARICOM governments have pursued. But I certainly think if we have economic integration and the free movement of people, then that paves the way for a consideration as to whether there is greater political union. I would say within the OECS, we probably have a far greater chance of more integration simply because we already have significant institutions that are integrated. Our court system, our central bank, our monetary system is already integrated. So we have the OECS Commission. There are things we do. For example, we are hosting the Ministers of Health Council meeting right now in Grenada. We have a joint pool procurement process for procuring medical supplies and pharmaceutical supplies. So as we continue building on those blocks, for example, we've recently signed an agreement within the OECS to have a joint regulator for the citizenship by investment programs. We are going to Parliament in Grenada on Friday to pass the legislation in the lower house. So again, that will be stationed in Grenada. So within the OECS, I think there will continue to be a movement to closer integration on a number of issues. In CARICOM, it probably would be slower because you have more diversity within the groups.
And next question from Merle Collins reads, is there a zoning policy so that garages don't operate in residential areas? If there is such a policy, is it enforced? Is there a body to whom people might report infringements if the policy exists? Is this a concern for public health?
Thank you, Ms. Collins, for the question. I don't think the word is really policy. We have the Planning and Development Authority. That's the statutory body that is tasked with enforcing planning and development. And that essentially means any development on land. As it stands right now, there is no clear-cut zoning legislation that enforces any zoning policy. So yes, you do run the risk that you could have a nice house, and right next to it, someone could in fact own land and erect a garage. And if planning permission was given for the garage, then the person would be complying with the planning law. If planning permission was not granted, then they would be in breach of the planning law, and the planning authority would be able to take enforcement action against them. The challenge we face, obviously, is that the planning authority, its resources are quite finite and limited, and in many instances, you do have these roadside garages popping up quite frequently. The challenge we face is that we don't have enough land space to have what I would call industrial sites where we can move the garages and so on. It is something we have to be able to address because, as I'm sure you would appreciate, people with vehicles do need to have their vehicles serviced. The persons who are mechanics do provide a service to the public. What we have to do is try and find appropriate locations where they can provide that service and the public can go to. But a lot of the mechanics are individuals who essentially went to TAMCC or NULO, learn their trade, and obviously are trying to offer a service and offer business. And oftentimes they do it in their homes or wherever they can find a piece of land to do so. So it is a challenge. It is something that we have to be able to talk about to find solutions. And I don't want, pitch people against each other. So as a government, our job would really be how we can find spaces that would allow for garages and other persons who are trying to do small businesses that are service oriented to find spaces to operate in, perhaps for lower minimum rent, so that the public can be serviced.
And Known is asking, given that the government has mandated the implementation of bi-monthly salaries, why has this change not yet been put in effect at all statutory bodies, and what steps are being taken to ensure compliance?
Well, thank you for that. I would need to check in relation to which statutory bodies are not paying bi-monthly, and I'm sure once we do that, the Ministry of Finance would be able to issue the policy guidelines to make sure that it happens. I will confess that I'm not aware that there are statutory bodies that have not fulfilled that mandate. Certainly central government has, and I will ask the Minister of Finance to look into it.
Okay. Joseph is asking, what is the current status of the shanty town created along the Port Highway in Tantine?
Well, I'm not sure if I can answer what the status is if you're referring to the vendors who are along the Port Highway. Most of the vendors who are there probably don't have physical or planning authority to be there. And I think you would recall perhaps last year, moves were afoot to be able to relocate the vendors. It is something we still need to address. It goes back to the same point about some of the roadside garages. Obviously, the port is a busy place. You have a lot of people who enter and exit the port, who clearing, doing business, and the vendors provide food and drinks, etc. As part of, obviously, the bustle and the hustle of commercial activity. Ideally, we would prefer not to have roadside vending, but we recognize that until we find an appropriate solution that can accommodate both the needs of the public in terms of finding a place to eat and the need of the vendors to be able to find a place to vend, we don't necessarily want to be high-handed and go simply knocking all of them down. It's not a license or a recipe for people to continue erecting new ones, but it is something that I think we are committed to trying to address with the Port Authority and with the Planning and Development Authority.
Okay. Tira Maria asks, can attention be given to restoring and maintaining Grenada's tennis courts? It's disheartening to see the sports facilities in decline.
The answer is yes. I think through the Ministry of Youth and Sports and through MIT, we began with basketball courts. So there's no reason why we can't extend to tennis courts. In fact, I'm aware that someone has been looking to approach the government to see whether they too can contribute. That's a private couple, to see how they can help improve and renovate some of the tennis courts as well. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Tennis sometimes is perhaps a forgotten or under-highlighted sport, and it is something that I think we can certainly look at in the coming budget cycle.
Okay. Well, just before we go to the streets, there's another quick question someone is asking. Can the PM let us know if the word Imani is still present at the moment? And can he let us know when regularization would be available to some hardworking Imani, especially those in the public sector?
All right, well, I think the question is answering itself, whether the word is wrong. We hear less of it, and I think we're very grateful and thankful for that. The regularization of persons who were trainees and styled as Imanis is something that is ongoing. We met a very complicated system and a pretty large workforce with all type of different names or classifications. So what we sought to do first was to deal with established public officers, then officers on contracts for and off service, and then to deal with persons who were styled as trainees. So you are aware that we increased the minimum wage to make sure that even the trainees who are stylers, trainees, or Imanis receive the $1,200 per month. We have introduced the pension scheme to make sure that non-established or contract off and contract force service workers can now have a pension. We have paid the retroactive pension and reinstated the pensions for established workers. And so the last stage really is to deal with how we transition persons who are trainees or Imanis, either because Imanis both operate in the private sector and in the public sector. So in the private sector, the approach has been that you have to hire them. If you no longer wish to hire them, then obviously fine, we'll have to work out how we transition them out, but we can't supply cheap labor for the private sector. Within the government sector, the approach is we will interview and verify that the persons are qualified, that they can do the jobs, and the aim is ultimately to get them into what I would call non-established mainstream government employees who will have the similar benefits as persons who were previously on contract offer for service. So this is ongoing. It may invariably get to a point where there is some attrition, because unfortunately, you can't train for 4 and 5 years. There's no such job in the world that requires you to train for 4 and 5 years. So there has to be a point where you're a genuine employee, where you're productive, where you come to work on time, you do what is required, and you're treated as an employee. If that results in a net surplus where you have to find employment or retrain, we'll endeavor to do so.
Okay. Fantastic. Folks, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll head to the streets.
Cinnamon, one of the signature designs of Project 500. This 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home spans 1,122 square feet, crafted for sustainable and modern living. The design features efficiency in wall, windows, and roof, engineered to reduce your overall electrical consumption by minimizing heat buildup. A cooler building on those hot days. Inside, you'll find low-flow plumbing fixtures, which reduces water usage. Efficiency without sacrifices. With 3 spacious bedrooms, this design offers a retreat for all members of the family. With an open floor plan comprising of dining, living, kitchen, dedicated laundry, utility closet, water storage, solar panel, and parking for 2. And an area for outdoor home gardening. The Cinnamon balances functionality and style. At Project 500 is more than just building homes. It's about developing sustainable communities and delivering quality homes for all families.
And welcome back once again to all our viewers and listeners of DMs with PM. It's time to head to the streets. Yeah, DMs from the street with Norris.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Norris Francois. What's your name?
My name is Mr. Million. Nice meeting you.
All right.
Yes.
Share your concerns to the Prime Minister.
Right. Well, I am, as I say already, my name is Mr. Million Charles. I've been working up land behind the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm in Maribor, and I work in this land approximately about 30 years now. But I was so comfortable in working the land because I do my kitchen garden, and then I planting the fruit that to come. Then I'm going to put a little ghetto, a little thing where I could stay on it, you know what I mean? But here come now, I understand now the Ministry of Agriculture want to take that land now and carry it over to the Maribor Farm School, which is unfair because all these years are there on it, and I believe that government should really look into that and do something about that because of all the years are on this land. I believe I should be able to, they should do something in a way that I should occupy, well, if it's not the whole, but I should occupy some areas in it, you know. So that's my concern.
And how much years have you been working in Maribor?
In the farm school. I work in the farm school for 37 years now. 37 years now, I work in Maribor Farm School.
Okay.
Yes, and this is a burden to me because I can spend all these years on this land and come and lost it, which I know government, you know, could be able to put things in place that I could own this piece of land. I don't mind even in case they put a fee into it. After a while, I could pay But I just want to, I don't want to lose this piece of land, you know. That's my concern about this land.
PM?
Well, I think he ended the commentary well by saying he doesn't mind if he has to pay for the land. So I think he knows it's not his land, that he seems to be accepting it's government land and he's been working it. So there are two ways to look at it. The government hasn't benefited from him working it. He's been able to use the land for free and benefit for himself. So in that sense, strictly speaking, the government owes him nothing. If he is interested in purchasing the land or leasing the land, since he says he works at the farm school, I think he has access to government officials at the Ministry of Agriculture. He can certainly approach them about the opportunity to lease or to buy the land. So I think it's important for us to appreciate the government is currently engaging in a land regularization exercise. It is starting first with persons who were authorized via cabinet conclusion to occupy and or buy land and who actually paid for the lands but did not get their conveyances. The next step will then be to look at persons who are on the land and have a letter authorizing them to enter and take possession of the land, but who perhaps need to continue paying so that they can get to the point where they have the titles. We will get to the point where there are persons who occupy government's land without permission, without any authority, and are doing so unlawfully, but have been there for a long time and who may wish to make the case to get an opportunity to purchase or buy the lands from the government. And this is something we'll be prepared to consider. But we can't occupy lands illegally, unlawfully, turn around and say we worked it and therefore you should be rewarded for working it by saying it's a burden to you. The land obviously never belonged to you. And the fact that it's state-owned lands or government lands doesn't change that fact. But as I said, if he's interested in purchasing the land, then certainly it's an opportunity for him to indicate that to the Ministry of Agriculture, and I'm sure from there the team in the Lands Department will then treat with the matter.
We have another DM from the street.
Hi, Prime Minister Mitchell. Just one quick question. How long does it take for someone in need of housing that sent in an application for that to come? How long does it take? Because I have this friend who I find is really in need of a house right now. The house got damaged maybe since Ivan burial was the last name?
Yeah.
Burial, and I find it's taking a while for them to get proper housing. So I just want to know if it's possible that you can give them that support. I know it's a lot to ask, but at least they need it.
Well, thank you for the question. For persons who were impacted by Hurricane Beryl, the Ministry of Housing continues to provide housing support for persons impacted by Hurricane Beryl. So in the initial stage after Hurricane Beryl, teams would have gone out to do assessments. Obviously, the conditions were trying and difficult, so it's possible that persons may have been missed. So if that person is someone who in fact was impacted by Beryl, they have an opportunity to, depending on the constituency they're from, to go into the Ministry of Housing, to speak with the housing officers who are there, and to make the case for the assistance. There is no fixed timeline as to by when someone will be able to get assistance, because the assistance first has to come in the form of material. You don't have to be able to find contractors, and you have to go through all of that process to be able to help the person if it is Hurricane Beryl assistance. If it is not Hurricane Beryl assistance, then there's a strict criteria that is used to assess persons who, and I'm using her language, are in need of housing and are unable otherwise to attain housing on their own, and it's housing assistance. We have to be careful, because there seems to be a prevailing notion that the government is giving people housing or is responsible for providing housing for persons. The government assists persons who are less fortunate and who otherwise can't afford or get housing on their own. But we have done everything to try and empower people to get houses at far more affordable prices, which is why we've decided to sell the low-income homes that were built by the Chinese throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, by giving people the opportunity to own homes at significantly reduced cost. It is why we are pioneering Project 500 to see how we can reduce the cost of home construction, and then have models that people can then work with the banks and so on to be able to acquire and buy. And it's why we've continued the land regularization, so that persons can have ownership of land and use it as security to be able to build homes for themselves. But I want to emphasize something here. A home is a private good. You can't share a house with someone unless it's family. The government and the state is responsible for providing public goods and services: roads, schools, education, healthcare, something that we all use. We all have to use the roads. All our children have to be educated. All of us need access to healthcare. But a house is a private good. I can't force you to share your house with someone else. I can't compel you to give me your house, etc. In fact, if the state tries to take your house from you, you can sue the state and you can get a lot of money. It's why we can't take people's property privately. It's why we can't take their home. So while the government, for persons who are less fortunate, does everything it can to provide housing assistance, we have to appreciate that these are private goods. And we need to be careful that the government doesn't stray into providing private goods, because then it becomes, why is this person getting housing and I'm not getting? And then there's really no basis to justify it. So in instances of natural disasters, where obviously it was unforeseen, or in genuine cases where there's a fire that is unexplained, not caused by your own negligence, then the government steps in to provide some assistance. But it's important for us to appreciate that private goods ought to be acquired by the citizens themselves. The government will do everything to facilitate by encouraging banks, by encouraging contractors, etc., to work with us to see how we can make housing more affordable in Grenada. But we need to be careful. If not, we will not be in a position to justify why it is one person gets housing and another person doesn't get housing.
Okay. We have another DM from the streets.
Well, welcome to DMs and PM on the streets again.
Yes, sir.
And what's your name?
Yasin Kibao.
All right, so ask a question.
Yes, one of my questions to the government in regards to the cannabis decriminalization. You know, for we know that since 2016, the CARICOM Commission on Ganja, you know, have made it clear that the process of decriminalization should be in effect. Grenada, up to this point, hasn't gone through that process. You know, my question, what the government or the cannabis committee have in place in terms of benefit for the Rastafarian community. You know, taking into consideration, we look at Antigua, where the government issue over $100,000 for research and benefits, you know, no licensing fee for the Rastafarian community. What they have for us here, you know, especially those who have been disadvantaged during the revolution in Hoopville and so on, you know, what the government really have to benefit the Rastafarian community here.
Yeah.
All right, so the Cannabis Commission, together with the Ministry of Legal Affairs, the Attorney General's Office, the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, are actually quite advanced in the work towards getting the bill to Parliament to decriminalize marijuana. There has been extensive consultations on this. There is, in fact, a Rastafarian member on the Cannabis Committee. As recently as, I think, perhaps within the last month, the committee members visited St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the second time to look at the operations and the legislative and policy framework in St. Vincent. We retained a legal draftswoman to assist us with drafting the bill. There has been extensive consultations even within the medical fraternity to make sure that we get some of the policy initiatives right. I can say, in fact, as of Monday coming, we are hopeful that we can get to a final draft bill as between the Cannabis Committee, the Ministry of Legal Affairs, the Attorney General's Chambers, and the Ministry of Agriculture and Land, so that at the cabinet level we can approve the draft bill, we can approve the policy and be able to take what is the first phase of the decriminalization process to Parliament. So if we get approval on Monday, we expect that before the end of the year there may be an opportunity for us to pass the legislation in Parliament. If it doesn't happen before the end of the year, then certainly I think within the first month in 2026 we expect it to be passed. So that's just phase one for the decriminalization. The second phase is obviously creating a licensing regime to actually establish a medical marijuana industry, because that is really the key thing. It's important for us to emphasize what we want to really, the main focus is the creation of a medical marijuana industry, not necessarily the permissive use of marijuana. So even though it's going to be decriminalized, you will have strict conditions that will pertain to what I would call its recreational use. So I want to assure the person that we are in fact very much aware of the fact that we are lagging behind, comparatively speaking, when we compare to some of our colleague sister nations in the OECS. I want to assure him that the Rastafarian community's interests is being looked after. There is a Rastafarian member on the Cannabis Commission, and I want to emphasize that the draft bill specifically contemplates the use of marijuana for religious and sacramental purposes, because we know it's part of the Rastafarian religion. So he could be assured that the community will be well looked after.
Well, folks, in the interest of time, we'll go directly to the phone lines to accommodate your calls. And of course, the number 423-3104 is the number to call to ask your question directly. 423-3104 is the number to call. So you can do that right now. We have a caller on the line? Okay. So while we await the call, 423-3104. That's the number to call to get on the program. We have a caller online. Caller, good evening, welcome, and make your question as brief as possible.
Welcome back, PM. I have a quick question. As you know, Grenada Carnival was very successful this year, and all the hotels are, for some strange reason, sold out, which they are not. They have been bought by private travel agencies. Is there anything you could do about that? Because they raised the price like 3 or 4 times the markup of these hotels in Grenada. A lot of people want to experience Carnival and they can't because of all that's going on with the hotels, claiming that they sold out when that is not the truth. So is that legal, or is there anything you could do when it comes to that situation?
All right, I think it's something we would have to ask the Board of Tourism and the Hotel and Tourism Association to look into. To be honest, I'm a bit surprised. I have heard, obviously, in a sense, talk that there will be great demand for Carnival next year in light of the success of this year, but I wasn't aware that they're saying that all of the hotels are already booked out or that there's price gouging taking place. So I would raise the matter with the Hotel and Tourism Association and the Board of Tourism to ensure that they can look into it. But having said that, it's also an opportunity for guests to stay at apartments, at Airbnb, and to also be able to spread, so to speak, the money amongst smaller operators and smaller persons who may have apartments, etc., during the period. So don't be deterred if you can't get a hotel. I'm sure there will be opportunities to rent rooms or rent apartments and so on to facilitate the process. If it becomes so successful, I mean, Carnival is around the time that SGU students are also returning, but there may be an opportunity for a lot of the persons who have apartments and otherwise who would rent to students to perhaps offer their accommodation short-term for the Carnival period as well.
We have another caller online. Caller, good evening, welcome, and please be brief.
Hi, good night. My name is Andrea Simon, and I'm calling to ask the PM what is his response to do with the man who came on the boat to talk to the Commissioner of Police.
Okay, I'm going to interpret the question. I think she's asking what is my response to the fact that Admiral Holsley, who is the commander of the U.S. Southern Command, who met with the Commissioner of Police and the National Security Advisor. Well, I wasn't at the meeting, but based on the briefing that was held and the briefing given to me after the meeting, that meeting was a general conversation about security cooperation between the United States and Grenada. From a broader perspective, there are a number of areas that we cooperate with, particularly when it comes to narcotics, small arms trafficking, whether it's through the RSS, CARICOM Impacts, the GRCC. It is an ongoing arrangement where we speak to ensuring that we have maritime surveillance, interdiction of narcotics, intelligence sharing in relation to firearms trafficking, etc. But I suspect underlying the question is a question about the U.S. request for the radar at the Morris Bishop International Airport. I will provide an update to the public in Parliament on Friday when Parliament sits, so it will be an opportunity to address the issue then so that the entire country have an opportunity to hear from me.
Okay. Caller, good evening, welcome to the program, and make your question as brief as possible.
Yes, good evening, and good evening, Honorable PM.
Good evening.
It's so nice to have you back and continue the good work that you're doing. We're praying for you, right? Despite, the criticism and so on, you're so focused. I just want to mention, Honorable PM, St. David's. It have, right around the corner by Miss Elmer shop. It has some hard concrete that is there. And vehicles, this morning we nearly watched an accident. They need to, I don't know if it's what's their name? I can't remember the concrete people. They need to grade up this concrete. Take it, remove it from there. Because it's going to cause a nasty accident one day, God forbid. Because this morning there was nearly an accident because a truck was rushing going down, and the same time a car coming up, the car had to go through them people's yard. You know, so they need to sweep back out the road. Take out this rugged concrete there. The concrete is very rough.
Okay.
It mash up your tires and it mash up you, etc., etc.
Thank you so much,
I don't know who could look into this first. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll ask the team at the Roads Department to look into the matter.
You know Miss Elma's shop?
Yes.
Okay. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program. You have a call online? Okay. All right, 423-3104. That's the number to call, 423-3104. That's the number to call. Not much time left, so ask your questions. All right? Now, and Mr. PM, in terms of, you know, the whole idea of you spoke a little while ago about why am I sounding like I'm tying myself up? Okay. You mentioned in terms of on Friday you would give a briefing to the public on the situation regarding, and I'm sure that you know that is what's making the rounds practically everywhere, every talk show, every social media platform. That is the conversation regarding, you know, the U.S. request. And you did say you would make a formal announcement on, would it also include what the response would be?
No, it's really to provide an update. Nothing much has changed since the Ministry of Foreign Affairs indicated that we were considering the request. We are still doing so. It is a technical matter that requires a lot of technical people to provide us with guidance on what it is we've been asked to accommodate. And so it's important. The public became aware of this through media reports, and we responded. But this request was made since August. We're in October. So if we were in a position to make a decision, August, September, October, and if we wanted to rush to do so, we could have done so. So the fact is, and that's why I think it's important for people to appreciate, whether it's the United States or any other regional country, there are always requests for us to cooperate on any number of areas, particularly when it comes to things like security. So, for example, and I'll give an example between Grenada and Trinidad. There are always instances where we will ask the Trinidadian authorities to cooperate with us in deporting people or providing intelligence on people. There are times when the Trinidadian government will ask us. We will have to consider those requests and say yea or nay, depending on the nature of the request. So when it comes to policing and security matters, there are always, whether it's Coast Guard, whether it's the police, whether it's the civil aviation authorities, whether it's the Ministry of National Security, there are always ongoing requests that we consider. I'll give examples. We've had requests where in the past, the French, for example, will ask us for permission to be able to board a vessel carrying a Grenadian flag somewhere up in the northern Antilles. Because it's carrying a Grenadian flag, it means its jurisdiction is Grenada. If we say no, they're not able to do so. If we say yes, they're able to do so. It could be for drug interdiction, it could be for human trafficking, it could be for any number of reasons. In this case, the request that is provided us has a certain context. It is a request from the U.S. Southern Command from a military perspective. Grenada has no military. So it is not something just right off the bat that we're familiar with. So that immediately makes it a different type of request, which is why we have to consider the pros and cons of whether we agree or not. And that is essentially what we are dealing with. I appreciate that because of the history of the Morris Bishop International Airport, because October in particular is tied to that history, and because the media reports came out in October, that it is a highly emotional issue for everyone. But for me as the Minister for National Security, we have to validate that. We have to take into account, and I'm extremely happy that the public has had extensive debating. They've shared their views. They've spoken about it. People have made their comments. People have sent their suggestions. People have made their recommendations. It shows the vitality of our democracy. It shows that freedom of speech is alive and well in Grenada. And it shows that we have a government that clearly understands that, because we made no decision. If we had made a decision without informing the public, with the discussions with the public, it would have been a different thing. So for me, I have no issue with the raging debate that's taking place. It's just part and parcel of our democracy. But at the end of the day, these matters, the public view will obviously weigh heavily. And we still have to continue the process of the legal and technical engagement. And if we even get to that point, we will then consult with the public as to what is the appropriate decision to be made. So while the emotion, the debate and so on is welcome, decision making always has to be made in a sober, fact, evidence-based, weighing the pros and cons in the overall context of everything else that is happening. But it's important for me to emphasize that Grenada has excellent relations with each and every country in the Western Hemisphere. There is no country that Grenada doesn't have diplomatic relations with or has any challenges with. When it comes to partnerships, from time to time we'll have difference of views, from time to time we may even have falling outs on a particular issue or a particular matter. That's the nature of diplomacy, that's the nature of international relations. You get over them and you move on. So I have no issue with the debate, I have no issue with everybody giving their opinions on the matter. And although I said I will give a statement, in a sense I'm probably giving a statement right here, because to a large extent I will be repeating a lot of what I've said here in Parliament, just perhaps giving a more chronological detail of the timeline involved and where we are.
And where we're working with. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. PM. We have another caller online. Caller, good evening. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Go right ahead with your question.
Yes, Mr. PM, this is Kim on court here. I think you know, right?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I have some suggestions to make to you. I first want to start off quick because time is limited. I want to tell you straight up, I know you're going to win 14 seats, and I always stick to that figure. I told you that in person. But there's some things growing you will have to move on very speedy with, because the rate you are going with that building friendship, you will need a lot of ambassadors, you will need a lot of people in more positions. I first want to tell you that 4 ladies I want to speak about. Abigail McIntyre, I think you need to make her after you win the 14th seat, make her senator and put her to study and need time for the woman to have a female representative. That is after when Mr. Andy won. And I thought that Gail Purser, that is done for a while, she has the quality to be senator also. I want to say your press secretary, Grenada, she needs to be a senator and put her under you. So with the removal of she, I think you need to put Arona as the press secretary. That's a part of the public view. She has the quality, she has the personality, and she's straight to the point. The other one and the last I want to talk about is Gloria Thomas. You need to move Gloria Thomas from a senator, because I don't think after winning 14 seats you will have room for the Governor General. She might want to stay there until about 4 months until everything settles down. And you need to put Gloria Thomas, because we're going young as the Governor General, and let Delma Thomas get somebody else to see. And the last 3 people is Leslie Ann Johnson. She need an upgrade because she work hard. She never go away and stay with them one finger visa, because it's one finger you just have to check for your fingerprint. And Dr. Alexis, and I think Sherry, and we need to look at this group of people. I don't know, none of them are good, but that is my view.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Right?
Thank you. Well, I think the women of the nation clearly have to thank you for advocating on their behalf, and it's worth thinking of, for sure. So 2 of the women you mentioned are in the studio with me, so women, congratulations in advance.
Well, I just got a promotion, so thank you so much, sir. We have another caller online. Caller, good evening, welcome. We're not hearing you clearly. Could you speak up?
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to the program. Go right ahead.
Mr. Prime Minister, pleasant evening to you and welcome back.
Thank you.
I would like to know, when will you be coming to Carriacou and Petit Martinique?
All right. I can't give a definitive date, but I look forward to coming soon. I think I was there not too long ago, perhaps within the last month, on a visit, but perhaps you might have missed me. So I will ensure the next time I'm coming that it's more widely publicized.
We have another caller online. Caller, good evening. Welcome. Caller, good evening.
Yes, good night.
Go right ahead with your question.
Not bad. I just wanted the PM to just try and walk up on them real people who get damaged in South Ivan in the school in the hurricane. Yeah, a lot of people suffering. People in this constituency in Labari and that pick up in St. Paul's of Day. A lot of people still under Ivan thing. I would like to give them special attention, please, Brother Dick.
All right. You said people from Hurricane Ivan or Hurricane Beryl?
Yeah, man, it's Ivan. Yeah, man, I don't want to really expose her, but you know, I was talking to.
All right. Well. All right. So what we'll do is offline we'll take your contact details so that we can speak with you to identify who these persons are.
And you know me very well. We know each other very well. So I wish you could call me later and tell you that personally.
All right. No problem.
Okay. Thank you. We have another caller. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program. Good evening. Caller, good evening.
No problem. Hello.
Yes, good evening. You are live. Go right ahead.
Hi, good evening. Caller, good evening. Welcome.
We are hearing you. Go right ahead.
Right, wonderful. Good night, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good night, sir.
Nice to hear you. I'm from the summer St. George, and I have a challenge, a serious challenge, and also a serious pain in my heart, whereby some years ago, while the NDC government may not have been in power then, my wife was hit by a vehicle in the Excel Plaza roundabout, which was actually driven by a Chinese diplomat. And after so many years, she was never looked up to. She was never attended to. Even years after now, she's still undergoing some of the challenges and the pains and so forth. I've been trying to make a contact to have a one-on-one chat with you, but that hasn't been forthcoming. And I'm driving and I'm hearing of the DMs of the PM, and I said, I'm sorry to have to interject, but it's a pain that I have in my heart that I would need to get some attention with, please.
But can I ask whether you retained a law firm to treat with the matter?
Well, the thing is, we were trying to avoid it for the sake of financial challenges. But, I mean, it's sad when we went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and all the other necessary ministries to seek assistance, and you were basically turned aside.
Yeah, well, I think the truth is, there's some things the government can do and some things the government can't do. I mean, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs may be able to raise the matter with the embassy of China, but it can't prosecute, for want of a better word, or pursue a claim for your wife in an individual capacity. And additionally, and I'm saying there is oftentimes immunity associated with diplomacy. So that is why you need a lawyer, because they will have to determine the extent of the immunity, if any. But I think it's so you may still need an attorney, even if the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is prepared to treat with the matter. So I think the easiest approach would be for a formal note to be sent to me, detailing the date, the history of the matter, so that I can ask the Ministry of Foreign Affairs now to look into it, so that we get a proper briefing of what is required. Because even if you speak to me, I will still need the date, the name of your wife, the date of the incident, the type of injury, her medical condition, etc., to be able to provide all of that to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Okay, so you suggested I should get that information to your office?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think it's time for a final call. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to ask the Prime Minister a question. Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to know what...
Go ahead.
Okay, hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, so Mr. Prime Minister, When you look at technology, right, and the growing trends for Grenada, can you tell us, sitting in your chair 20 years from now, what do you think that you will be most excited about for our country's future? And also, probably you can tell us one of the things that keeps you up worried at night, thinking about the future of Grenada. Thank you.
It's a good way to end.
Yes. Well, I think in terms of technology, I will go back to education, because what I don't want to continue happening is a situation where we just consume technology. I want us to get to a point where we create technology as well. But to create technology, you have to have the right educational foundation. You have to have a scientific background. You have to have a background in math. You have to have a background in critical thinking, in experimenting, in being solution-oriented, and also in being entrepreneurial-minded. Because if you don't have that, then it means you will constantly consume the technology other people produce. And the beauty of technology is that it actually comes from human capacity. It is human beings who develop technology. It is human beings who develop solutions. And if you develop solutions that you can then scale, because oftentimes human beings have the same problems no matter where they live, then there's an amazing opportunity to be very, very successful in light of the fact that you have almost all trade being done on the internet. The fact that the world is so small and it's a global village. So I think the exciting challenge for us is how do we reposition our education system to create entrepreneurs, to create critical thinkers, to create scientists, to create people who love math, to create people who want to become persons who create technology rather than just consume technology. So I want someone who, when they look at Japanese anime, say to themselves, why can't I do that? And what do I need to be able to do that? And how can I create the Grenada version of anime or something like that, as opposed to just simply sitting and watching the TV and consuming it all the time with no curiosity as to how it's done. That means at a very early age, the education system has to expose our students to that kind of thinking, that type of cooperation, that type of learning. So if 20 years from now, I'm looking back, I want to be able to look back and see that Grenada has its own animation factories, its own multimedia outlets, its own creatives, its own technologists who are finding solutions to suit Grenada's challenges, right? You have persons who are prepared to take business risk, who don't just simply say, right, I'll put my money in the bank and hope the bank will be able to find somebody else to finance so that I can make a return on my investment. And that's why things like financial literacy and all of those things have to become a lot more critical at a very early age. And people have to understand money, understand how to make money, understand how to create wealth, how to create intergenerational wealth, how to think about the next generation. And I mean, there are a lot of issues we need to address. So many of our people drink ourselves into oblivion, and then they don't even take care of the house they build so that they can't even pass it on to a child, so that the child starts at a better place than they started. So those are some of the things I think 20 years from now we have to think of. What keeps me up at night? A lot of things, I suppose, but I think for me, the key one would be to make sure that Grenada and Grenadians continue to espouse values that make us safe and make us live in peace. And I say that because, you know, we've said within CARICOM that violence is a public health safety, and we don't say that lightly. Violence begets violence. Ignorance begets violence. You know, lack of education begets violence. Lack of opportunity begets violence. So the wrong values begets violence. So we have to make sure that we don't take the fact that we are relatively peaceful for granted. So you see, when I talk about things like we should have a zero tolerance to firearms, there are elements in the community and in society who will push back. There are elements who say, well, because of my job, I need a firearm or this or that. But what are the consequences of firearms? More firearms creates more firearms. People with firearms shoot each other. And we've seen that here. So we have to decide whether, because we are so into adopting other people's culture, where guns become prevalent, and it becomes normalized. Well, if that happens, I can tell you it will become a violent society. And I would say it in a much more different political context. We're in October. You know, if there were no firearms around in 1983, it would have been very difficult to line up and execute the Prime Minister and his cabinet colleagues. Whatever violence you might have had to, you would have to fight with them. You might have to run and get a cutlass, a piece of wood, or whatever the case is. But the chances that they probably would have lived. So when you militarize a place, when you arm the citizens, I mean, the foreign minister told me, you know, at 17 and 18, he could have taken apart a Kalashnikov and put it back together because they were part of what then was the militarization of the country, right? So it can happen in a political context or it can happen in a civilian context. So we have to make sure that we have the right values. We live in the underbelly of the United States where gun culture is endemic, it's systemic, it's almost a foundation of the society. What it leads to is violence. People get killed all the time, it's normalized. You hear on the television, 20 people were killed in a school, business as usual, people go on the next day. Right? We can't, Trinidad has what, 300 and something murders or something, 28 alone in October. One for each day of the month. It becomes normalized, people just go along. Right? We cannot afford, and it has nothing to do with size. Because there are much larger countries in the world where 28 people don't get killed in a month. Right? So we have to make sure that we teach the right values about tolerance, about peace, resolving our differences, making sure that we don't exclude our young men in particular from valuing their own lives and valuing the lives of their fellow comrades and so on. So I think that would be the part that keeps me up at night, and it's not something we can retreat from, and it's not something the government can solve. It is something that requires all of us in a country to be aware of and to want to make sure we work hand in hand to make sure that we don't get to that stage.
Oh, that was a mouthful and definitely a wonderful way to end this week's program, because those were two really good questions. You know, what keeps you up at night, and of course, you know, technology, and that is definitely a very, very, very important topic. Well, folks, you did get your time and some. It is 7:14, so absolutely no complaints. Thank you so very much, everyone, for viewing, for listening. Thank you so much to our partner stations, Power FM, Vibes FM, Carriacou, Star FM, Fusion FM, GBN, and We FM for accommodating us as always. And of course, those of you who viewed on YouTube and Facebook. But just before we go, Mr. Prime Minister, the final word is yours.
Well, it's good to be back. I want to commend Minister David Andrew and MP Ron Redhead for holding down the hot chair when I was absent. I think they both did a fantastic job. I have, so I'm saying executive producers, I have offered other colleagues the opportunity to come on maybe twice a month to share their stories. I think for the public to see who they are as persons, what they stand for, what are their values, get to know them, and so also they can be in the hot seat as well. I think one caller did say I should let some of my colleagues come on and answer questions pertaining to their constituency and their ministries as well, and we're happy to do that. So thank you for going easy on them when they were here.
No, they were really good. Someone says they'll absolutely love your style, and if it's something you would like your other colleagues to adopt and do away with the jacket and tie mentality and give us the more casual but formal look.
No, I think in the Caribbean this is certainly more comfortable. There's no question about that. The temperature here doesn't augur well for the wearing of jackets and ties in particular. Once you put on a tie, it makes your body temperature go 2 or 3 degrees up. So, you know, in a cold place, the jacket and tie is perfectly capable. But, you know, this is largely made in African countries, Ghana, Nigeria, etc. It's also an opportunity. It's what we're working on, to bring tailors from some of those countries, to give an opportunity for Grenadians who are interested in sewing in particular, because all of this is handmade, to actually learn to sew and to make the opportunities to sew this type of clothing or even just create their own style. We don't really have a national dress or wear, so it might be an opportunity for something to be developed coming out of this as well. So it certainly is more comfortable. I will readily concede that. Yeah,
it suits your physique as well. Guys, again, thank you so very much. And it was an absolute pleasure having the Prime Minister back in the chair. And that's it for this week's program. Thank you so much for viewing. Thank you so much to our entire production team. And if all goes well, we'll see you again next Tuesday, same time, same place, right here for another DMs with PM. Have a good one, everyone.